The Bite Me podcast is coming right up, and it is brought to you every week right here on YouTube by Freedom Boats. It is the best shallow running boat on the water, and there is a model perfect for you. The Chiquita 14, the Eagle 16, the Patriot 18, the Commander 21, the beautiful Warrior like I have 23, or the big boy that runs so shallow, the General 26. Chet Moore and Pooty can customize it however you'd like, and there's a dealer near you, whether it's the Boatyard in Kemah or dealerships in San Antonio, Beaumont, Corpus Christi, Port O'Connor, Houston, and Aransas Pass. Freedom Boats or freedomboatsusa.com. Welcome in to the Bite Me podcast. Big show as always, ready for you today. I will say this based on the off-air conversation, just to reiterate, this is about fishing and life with these three crazy guys that are in front of me, Captain Scott Knoll, Captain Dean Thomas, and Captain Caleb McCumber. It is not a parenting podcast, and we established that in the conversation before we went live. Do you care to share any of that, Caleb, before we get started here?
Man, I mean, I went downstairs to do some stuff and realized I hadn't seen my kid in about 19 hours. So I had to call everybody I know to see where he was.
It's not parenting. It's not a parenting podcast.
I wonder if he noticed that you were missing.
He did not. I can tell you that right now, and I wasn't even there.
The thing that alarmed me is about 6 times a day for about 30 minutes at a time, he'll go bounce a ball off of the front door and catch it with his gloves. So I hear thump, thump, whack, thump, thump, whack. And I was just sitting here, and you ever notice it's like it's been quiet and there's something wrong with it, but you don't know why?
Because
I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Now he's back.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So a lot of weather happened, and you know what? It was very, very weird. We're going to get to that. I mentioned the fellas in front of me. Did not mention that you can subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, any platform at all. We recommend Podbean, but iTunes and Spotify are good as well. And of course, the group page. Lots of stuff happening on the group page. Of course, we can also, that's where you RSVP for the feeding frenzy. We'll get to that later. Also, you can get your hotel room there, a block of rooms with about $70 off on the rate, as I remember it. And also get the raffle tickets for a brand new 2026 Freedom Patriot boat with Suzuki motor and a coastline trailer. You guys know the drill there. Highly recommend you go there. Oh, and by the way, you can get some new Bite Me shirts. I'm wearing one right now. How about that? You can get that Lime Truce, I guess, fishing shirt is what you call it, the dry fit. I'm wearing the blue and white as well. I got orders already from Caleb and Dean. Scott, what color you want? What size? Tell everybody your size here on the podcast before we get started.
Is that one of the thin fishing shirts?
Yeah, it's a dry fit fishing shirt. Yeah.
Blue extra large.
There we go. We're good to go. Now we can get started.
He gets an extra large because he's so tall.
That's it. Yeah.
That's why I got one.
I believe you.
That wind, every time you take a picture of a fish, that wind will blow those shirts perfectly to make a love handle stick out about 9 inches.
Oh, yeah.
That's why you get one size bigger.
100%. All right. So lots to cover. But I want to start with just a little off-air conversation, text exchange, message exchange that Scott and I had, because I am going to go somewhere with this. But Scott, I'll let you lay it out because we all have stories on this. And the way I've kind of jotted it down is you cannot always avoid storms, but you can often, and you can most of the time if you do simple things. And then what to do during a storm, because some of the we won't mention any names, but some of the things you saw were a little bit eyebrow raising. And I know we're going to have some storm discussion, tide discussion, water level discussion, because Caleb and Dean experienced it as well. But lay it out for us here, Scott.
I saw a post. This dude, said he got caught unexpectedly by a storm, and he had a screenshot of the storm on radar. It was huge. It was pretty damn big. Covered the whole bay and the island and
covered the screen.
Yeah, I mean it was pretty big, and it was like 3 a.m. And then he's got a video to go along with it where he's saying some expletives as the lightning is popping all around him, and I mean to the point that at one screen grab, it completely whited the whole screen out. It hit pretty damn close. Okay, number one, getting caught out like that, it sucks. I've done it. I haven't done it since I got one of these phones here.
It's in your hand. It is in your hand. It's
And since
right
I've gotten
here.
radar, I try to avoid those situations.
Mhm.
But at night, you can see lightning a long, long, long ways,
Mhm.
and you got a feeling that it's coming. I mean, you can feel it in the air. You can feel the storm. So getting surprised by one, even without all that's
Mhm.
is kind of unusual. But then his actions during the storm drew a lot of comments as well. He's on a boat. He's next to a dock. I mean, like stepping distance from a dock, and all of his rods are sitting up in rod holders, straight up. A bunch of little lightning rods.
Mhm.
And the least safe place on the water is on the boat.
Mhm. Well, you
You
know what
know,
I always say. Anytime
on
there's
your
a storm
boat
coming,
with
I
lightning
always,
rods
yeah, I
is
always tell
really,
everybody we're fine as long as we're not in a boat.
yeah,
And of course, that gets them a little rattled and everything. But go ahead.
yeah. And then to add in having lightning rods sticking straight up everywhere.
Mhm.
And as I kind of followed along just a little bit on the thing, he was saying, well, there was a tall sailboat near him, so he figured he was safe because the sailboat was much taller than him.
Oh God.
Makes
And
sense.
you look at the video, he ain't that close to the sailboat. It ain't like it was right next to him or anything.
Makes
I mean, he's
sense.
still a ways from it. So there's a whole lot of
So,
wrong there.
was he
Number one.
closer to the dock that he had access to, or
Oh,
the
absolutely.
sailboat?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, like he's like stepping distance from the dock.
Mhm.
And so number one, don't get caught out there because you've got this phone sitting here that's got radar.
Mhm.
It's got all that. He said, well, he checked AccuWeather or something and or Google weather or whatever, and it didn't mention anything about rain. Well, I don't care if it mentions anything about rain or not. If I see lightning coming,
Yeah.
I'm gonna check it again.
Yeah.
And then take a quick look at the radar and oh hell, it's coming this way. There's a dock right
Obviously,
there. I'm gonna get
nat-
off of this. I'm gonna put my rods down,
Yes.
and then I'm
Look.
gonna get off this boat and go huddle up underneath that porch over there.
natural selection is a real thing.
I'm
Yes,
about
it
to
is.
take this a direction that nobody is going to see coming.
It might be the same one I'm thinking, but go ahead, Dean.
No, not even close. Not even close. I'll be the first one to say on here that Chuck McKinney is smarter than anybody on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I'll also be the first one to say he doesn't often prove it, but I know that he is. And I've seen this dude out in multiple lightning storms. If it's raining bad, he has a front casting tower just like mine. If it's raining bad, he'll wrap in a tarp, keep himself dry, and then he will go sit dead ass center underneath that aluminum 8-foot tower. And he keeps using the term Faraday cage. Something about if lightning hits that tower, it disperses it and it don't hit him. I mean,
I've heard of
he
that.
hadn't had a chance to prove it, but he's real confident when he talks about it.
Yeah. Well, maybe he is smarter than all of us.
I mean, like,
So how close do you have to be to the cage to get, fried?
he's sitting under it dead center. I just feel like it's going to hit you from every direction if you did that one. But he was the dean of coastal or some college in Corpus. I don't know which one it is. I mean, he's, like I said, he's smarter than all of us. I just ain't seen him prove it a whole lot, but I know that he is.
I bet your hearing would be really screwed up after that.
Me and Jim are both deaf anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's
the other thing with old fellow there, he was holding on to his grab rail.
Oh Lord.
He's grounded.
Yeah, he's got tennis shoes on.
He wears tennis shoes.
So we're gonna talk about this a little bit more because certainly our listeners may not be as well versed as unfortunately all four of us are. But this is where I was going, Caleb, and I feel like Sherman nailed it. He texted here on the live stream, anything for content. I'm convinced because who doesn't have a phone? Who doesn't see lightning on the horizon in the dead of night? Who can't open this little thing here and go to any of these apps that have live radar up into the minute and see this wall of red and orange coming at you and which direction it's going, et cetera, et cetera. I am convinced that this is a guy that wanted to have that video, wanted to quote unquote go viral or whatever, which is, again, and we talked about this with, fast boats and running skinny and all that not too long ago. It's about the dumbest thing you can do.
Hell, I made a video about popping corks. I get it.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, that's fair. That's fair. But I guarantee you it's for content. He just wanted it to have those videos.
Well, it's an opportunity.
Saturday back built really bad and really fast in West Galveston. I do know that. They were popping up east, and then boom, they got a bunch of the guys in the redfish tournaments and everything. But like you can see it happening. It's very, very rarely does it just poof and you're in it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
there's
and
also
there
a difference between being caught out in the middle of the marsh.
Yeah, there's that.
In your boat next to a dock.
Yeah.
And and so, yes, all that being said, there are times that things do develop right over your head. That one happened offshore Port O'Connor last year. That one developed as we were sitting there over our head. Didn't really have a chance to see that one coming. But yeah, along with the lightning, I mean, it makes noise. You can hear it coming as well, too. But to be within walking distance of land like that, but and also, of course, for creating content, it's an opportunity. Anything that happens to pop up, it's like, oh man, we got to get this on the internet.
Yeah. I think that's what it was, which is about the dumbest thing. But let's turn it to our listeners, some of whom, maybe don't have that experience. And we've all been caught there. And both of the worst ones that have been in tournaments. And I'm guessing you guys are in the same boat, so to speak. Tournaments, you kind of get a little, well, maybe I'm catching fish or I feel good about that. It might go the other way. I can outrun it. We all know this. We all know the excuses. We all use them. The one in Sabine that I got, stuck in was really, really, it was one of those, Caleb, where you could see like the lightning 100 feet away, 50 feet away, 100, 200 feet. I mean, just boom, 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 boom. So I barrel out of there because I was hard-headed and it was my mistake. And I get to a dock, like it was right there in Sabine. Everybody knows where I'm talking about, where the road to Louisiana is on that. I guess that would be the south side. And there was a house there with a dock, and I just pulled in, tied off. And unfortunately, by then the rain was just torrential. The wind started blowing in the other direction, so my boat started slamming into the dock really hard, like rocking and slamming, almost to the point of hitting the top of it with the hull. So I had to just get in the rain and hold the boat with my feet and a rope on the other side and holding it, and it's bouncing everywhere. It was bad. But at least you're on the dock and the rods are down and stuff like that. And I told everybody to just get underneath the dock there. But there are things that you can and should do, and things that you can and shouldn't do, Caleb. But we've all been there.
Yeah, but my mid tower does pretty well for just bad rain and stuff like that. Frank said it already. Run your boat or your kayak or whatever up on the grass. If it's lightning a lot, you can lay down in the grass. I've been in a hailstorm before, and back then I was running a shoalwater cat, and we like beached about half the boat and stuck as much of our bodies as we could up under the boat into the tunnel just to keep them getting hit in the back of the head with hail.
Yeah.
But yeah, get somewhere, I mean, my boat, I'm screwed. I can lay everything down. I'm still way up there with aluminum sticking everywhere, but get away from the boat, lay down in the grass. It sucks. Frank said something about enjoy the cool shower. Frank, you're full of shit. It sucks.
It sucks.
Fortunately, most of the times I've had to lay in the grass, I had waders on, so it helps. But it's better than getting zapped in the back of the head with a lightning bolt. Get low, get somewhere.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I don't know if I mean, Scott, you're old. You know these things. What if you don't have access to shore? Could you get out of the boat and just stick your head out of the water?
I don't think it'd be better than standing in a boat, or I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know how good that one sounds. That's Caleb on the lawnmower drinking beer thoughts.
Well, yeah, and my thought is, you get it. Okay, so you're near your boat. It pops the boat. It probably travels through the water a bit, and it might knock you out, and now you're floating or not floating.
Yeah, I don't know which one arguably would be better, being what got popped or in the residual of it.
Yeah.
So Scott,
I'm
take us
thinking
through
in that situation, I'm going to go fast back towards wherever I can get to something where I can get out and hope the lightning can't catch me.
See, I've been running from storms. There was one in Louisiana that was really bad, and I was running from them. There's lightning popping all around us, and I'm sitting here thinking, is there some sort of weird crap where the friction on the water and on the bottom of my boat is making it even more attractive? Like,
You're thinking too much.
I've had to fish through some terrible stuff, but I haven't enjoyed a second of it. I hate electricity. I don't even like wall sockets.
It's terrifying. Dean, go ahead.
I was just thinking of Caleb with just the electrical issues. I was thinking about his lifestyle and the hand of God reaching down and slapping his ass.
I'll show you.
more than the conductivity of the issues. You know, what we have. But I mean, yeah, I've been.
What's the worst storm you've been caught in? No, you except for the one that you and Scott have shared about.
That one, and then there was another one. And they were all in kayaks. But see, in the kayaks, you can't outrun them. So you're really at a disadvantage of hitting the key and blasting off out of there. We were in Lighthouse Lakes one time, and I mean, I saw 2 lightning bolts hit the water within range of us. And the guy that I was with, I told him, I said, we need to get away from each other so one of us will be available to call 911 when the other one gets hit. It was bad. And actually, there was one on the boat where there was so much static electricity in the air that the rods were like sizzling. They were
I've had that
where the line comes from the tip back down to the lure. It was static to where they were just it sounded like a sizzling noise, but it was just static electricity, like twitching the lines. And I have seen that also where there's so much static in the air when you cast that the line floats. It stays up in the sky instead of falling down.
That's a sign, Dean. That's a sign.
And then the stupidest one was a freshwater tournament in Decker Lake in Austin, where the morning the tournament was postponed and it looked like it was passing by. And in the eagerness to continue the tournament, they said, okay, go fishing. We're good. And no more than 30 minutes later, again, it was the most lightning and static to where the lines were sizzling in the rods. And that was another one where I laid everything down. I paddled up into some cattails and sit there and said some Hail Marys and tried to reconcile for all the wrongs that I have done up to that point in my life.
Oh, the purest I've ever been is during lightning storms. I have repented for all.
Yeah, that's what Sherman said. That just shows how close y'all came to dying. LOL. It crosses your mind. It crossed mine a couple times.
It's today the day.
It's today the day. All right, but what are we missing? Caleb laid out a couple of things there. Scott, Dean, jump in whenever you want. What are we missing? You know, despite the phone, despite thinking about, I need to get out of here, you somehow get caught up in it. He laid out some things. What are some other things that our listeners might benefit from?
I had one with a fly fishing customer where we got caught. It cut us off from going back any direction that we could go.
Yeah.
And we're up in Chocolate Bayou, I think. May have been Bastard Bayou. Anyway, we ended up just laying down in the boat. Laying down, laid all the rods down, laid down the boat. And that's the best thing you can do. I mean, if you're in that situation, you're just really screwed and you got caught, you're slipping. And that was before radar on the phones. I mean, we saw it coming. We couldn't tell which direction it was going. And it just kind of cut us off. Nowadays, I mean, you can look at your phone. You can, like on My Radar, the app that I use is called My Radar. It'll show you lightning, and it'll show you whether or not that storm's got lightning in it. And it'll tell you how high the tops are. It tells you a lot of good information if you learn how to look at it that will help you out to avoid having to deal with any of this. And that's the number one. My number one advice is avoid this at all costs.
No.
Just try like hell not to get yourself caught up in it. My grandfather, he got hit by lightning when he was working, and he drove a maintainer and built dirt roads in Gonzales County. And I've heard that he was hit more than once.
Yikes.
And I know as a kid, he'd take me out fishing on the ponds around there on the cow pasture ponds. And I'm telling you, if a white fluffy cloud came up on the horizon, we were getting in the truck.
Mm-hmm.
His whole mode was avoid the problem.
Yeah.
And I guess that's probably the best advice is to
Dean, go ahead.
work on not getting into that situation.
Yeah. Dean, I was wondering if you had anything else to add before we move on, because we got a lot to cover today on the podcast, including a really cool update on tagfish and some of the sounds that I was asked about that are on the water. But anything to add there? Because just one thing, and Caleb can relate to this, because sometimes it's the smartest thing is to go the opposite way. Like Scott was talking about, he got cut off. Now, clearly, he couldn't go the opposite way. He just laid down. But sometimes
and if you can, if you
go
can,
the other
that's
way,
an option.
just go opposite.
The way I tell it to people when the storms are coming and we're down to the point where we have to make a decision, I will tell them, it's like, we're going to go take a ride to the marina, let this pass and see what happens. Because I would rather be there wishing I was out there on the water than being on the water and wishing that I had left earlier and seek some shelter.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it might suck to miss out on a few minutes of fishing or a little bit, but I've missed it by like 1 minute from the marina, and that last minute sucks.
Yes,
I mean, and you're like, and you can see it, and it's like, God dang, if I would have left just 2 minutes sooner, we wouldn't be doing this right now. We'd be undercover. So, I mean, I've learned over the years to err on the side of caution, and I don't wait.
So, Caleb,
there's times like I'll have a storm between me and the harbor, and it makes sense to wait, but then you got to kind of pay attention and see if there's stuff building around you, and the situation is just getting worse too. But yeah, don't drive at it if you don't have to.
Yeah,
although I do have some really good footage of a water spout because I drove right up in the middle of that son of a gun for content.
Yeah, well, there you go. You're part of the problem. So I was on the far east side of East Matagorda Bay in those little mud flats, and I put in Sargent, and I saw it coming, and it was one of those that you were just talking about a little while ago. It just I could see it coming, and I thought, okay, I'll bug out and get back to Sargent, and then it just built right over my head, and I'm like, holy! So there's no way I can go back. So I just went all the way to the harbor. I went completely across the bay, up the channel, up the ditch. And just, even though that's not where I put in or anything, I just sat there until it all passed and then came back out. So sometimes just go the other way,
One of my favorite stories along those lines, I had some friends, we were fishing a tournament out of Galveston, and all of us were in the Big Bay, and the weather got bad, and I don't think they had crapped away in anyway. And we had launched out of like Topwater or something like that. And these fools just pulled up to some random boat ramp on the east side, called an Uber, and got it to drive it all the way back around, picked up their trailer and their truck, and then drove all the way back around and picked up their boat and went home.
I like it. I like it.
They didn't get hit by lightning.
Yeah. I had a tournament in Port O'Connor, and it was bad coming back across. And so we just parked in Matagorda and got Nick Mosley to give us a ride to Port O'Connor to get our truck and our trailer.
Oh, man, that's a good friend. Yep. That's a good friend. Yeah. So anyway, that was what I wanted to get into. Got to give this update because this is. Go ahead, Scott. Look like you have something else.
The one that makes me laugh is when I told the story a couple of years before Dean got started with us, and the reaction from Caleb was just the funniest part. And I was running down the beach, and a big storm cloud was coming, and it cut me off from getting to the pass, and had water spouts coming out of it. I just kind of looked around, and it was one storm. I looked at my radar, and I just turned and went about 5, 6, 7, 8 miles offshore.
Yeah.
Went straight offshore and just sat out there and watched it go by. And then I came in, and I just remember the look on Caleb's face. And at the end of it, he says, I would have never thought about going offshore.
Yeah.
It's still the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Hey, it worked. It worked.
Yeah, that day.
Hey,
all right.
And everybody out there that thought me and Scott were going to tell our stupid story about getting beat up in that one tournament for the 50th time owes me $1 because you lost.
All right. Speak up if you think you have the answer, because I just got text from Ryan Towns over at CCA StarTournament.org if you're still interested, and you will be after you hear this. How many tagged redfish, all the colors, blue, red, the water tag, and the Lone Star tag. How many tagged redfish do you think have been caught right here June 17th? And it started on Memorial Day. Give me a guess. How many think have been caught? It's a regular stop for me, and it should be for you too. Anglers Anonymous in Katy. It's a candy store for fishermen that's going to make your head spin and help make you a better fisherman. You got to see the expanded store too, and you got to chat it up with Mike and Chris Butler, all the guys at Anglers Anonymous. They'll answer your questions honestly, and they'll get you what you need. Reels, rods, lures, they have it all, and apparel that's off the chart. And of course, the calling card service. Real repair, they turn it around for you quickly, and you will be happy. That's Anglers Anonymous in Katy or anglersanonymous.tx.com.
10.
That's close.
Are we going to include registered and non-registered?
I just said how many tagged fish have been caught.
Well, we can't prove it.
I've got the update.
Some people probably didn't tell you.
Okay, well, how many have been acknowledged as caught? Yeah.
8.
I was gonna go with 8. $1, Bob.
Yeah. So you're gonna go with the old Price is Right thing.
I was gonna go with 8, and he screwed me.
Yeah. 11 tagged redfish have been caught. Here's where it gets interesting. Only 2 polygraphs are scheduled. 5 for sure were not registered for the tournament.
Dang.
So of 11 tagged redfish, there's only 2 polygraphs. The other ones might be pending. We don't know. But 5 for sure were unregistered. People.
Hey, it ain't that hard to register, man.
Are those fish back in the water?
They are back in the water. Well, reportedly, at least according to CCA.
That's what I mean. That's the ones who caught them and let them know that they caught them and turned them loose.
Yeah.
I bet you there's another 2 or 3 or 4 that were caught that got filleted.
They were mad.
I would be eating that fish.
picking your teeth with the little tag.
Yeah. Like a toothpick. So here's the other very interesting thing, and I'm curious on your guys' thoughts on this. Of the tagged redfish that were released live on our show, one was caught. The water tag of that was released on our show. We released, remember, I think we did a blue, a red, the water tag, and the Lone Star live on this show. The water tag has been caught, registered. He's going to have Whataburger for a year. Here's where it gets interesting. 13 miles away from where it was released.
Who caught it?
I don't have the name. I didn't write it down. I don't know if they've released that yet, but I did get the information. If
we figure out who it is, they get a free Angler U membership for a year too.
There you go. I'll mention that. Free Angler U. Go ahead, Scott.
I had to laugh when I got, I don't know, after we had shown that, release.
Mm-hmm.
It just, this thing popped into my head. I just pictured 113 people in a line wading that shoreline the next day.
Oh, they were for sure. It's like what I told you guys. The reason that redfish went 13 miles, he was trying to avoid the boat traffic.
You reckon you get like one Whataburger a week, or just anytime you go in there, you got a little card that says "Gimme"?
Yeah, I think you know what. Given the way Whataburger does things in CCA, I bet you just go. And I'll get the details on that.
I used to take the CFO to Whataburger fishing. I never even got a damn coupon.
Well, you should have gotten at least a coupon.
You'd figure, right?
So it was caught in, is it Los Corrales?
Corrales,
near Baffin, 13 miles away from where it was released. That really blew me away. I thought maybe 2-3 miles or right where it was released, because the other one, Scott, you said one was released over there by Powderhorn, caught right where it was released, right?
He didn't say where he caught it.
Oh, okay.
But he brought it back. It was one that was released in Indianola at the marina there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of their release spots that they used, and he brought it back to the Indianola marina to have it checked because they're an official station. But it didn't really say exactly where he was, but I would guess it probably was in Powderhorn, or right outside Powderhorn somewhere.
It's nuts, but 13 miles really surprised me.
Corrales makes a little bit of sense, but that fish crossed some pretty damn deep water to get to that shoreline.
Oh, I was going to ask about that. What was the route you think it took?
And it almost would have had to have not really the Rivera Channel, but it would have had to cross right there where it turns left and goes back into Rivera. It had crossed that deep water, and then he would have just followed grass down the south shoreline to Corrales.
Mhm.
Maybe it crossed land.
Maybe it did.
It took Uber. It took Uber.
I'm thinking that son of a gun, man, come that first morning of the tournament, and those 113 waiters went.
Kind of pushed him a little bit.
They kicked
Fish
him.
been running scared for 3 weeks.
I tell you how he got across that water. He got punted.
Rode the lightning. Speaking of which, before we get into the next topic about sounds, and by the way, you're just going to be sick if you catch one and you're not registered. You guys have all registered, right? In case you get somebody on your boat. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes,
Yep.
yes, and yes. That's good. I gotta hear about this weather, Caleb. You were sending us some text. What's the latest? That you said was it the river that got over was so deep, or was it someone else? You look like you're scared.
Well, actually,
The
Charlie
teacher told
Paradosky
on
just
you.
texted me and said the Colorado has calmed down. But
Okay.
I don't know. I'm just hoping we get some rain. It's awful damn dry around here.
Wait, what?
Yeah. No, man, it's a little fresh out there. I think, but I didn't bring anything up. Dean posted some negative crap about hurricanes in Mexico or something.
Oh yeah.
Which is
Yes,
honestly-
I was hoping we would get to that because I want
Go
to
ahead.
find out if that's legit.
Mhm. What'd you see?
Well, the forecast is that there's some kind of low pressure in the Yucatan or Campeche that by the end of this week is going to be in the Gulf and crossing in near Corpus Christi. But that was from a San Antonio news report about 3 days ago. And I've been away from civilization for a while.
You can't trust some Yankees from San Antonio.
No, I haven't. And I know that Scott, he watches those models and such. So I was hoping we had some level of expertise on the show today that could help us out.
We do.
talked
Go ahead,
about
Scott.
Scott's Instagram.
National Hurricane Center isn't picking up on anything yet. The models are scattered. Some of them are showing it. The GFS model that used to be pretty good, it's been throwing out all kind of stuff here since a week before hurricane season started. It's been trying to spin something up, and nothing's happened. Just as a reminder, boys, we are well into the hurricane season because this same time right now, this same week, we were already getting Burl last year. We were on our second one.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's time. And anything, Bay of Campeche is usually where the first ones of the season pop up. And a lot of them are crossovers, come from Pacific side. And there's something over there in Pacific right now that's supposed to slide across Mexico and pop off into the Bay of Campeche. There's no way to know where that thing's going to go from this point. I mean, they can't tell you, 2 or 3 days out when we got one spinning. So a blob coming across, I'll believe it when I see it. But you got time.
Yeah, you got time, but be aware. Caleb, I got a question for you.
What's that?
Why the heck are you sending us vulgar videos during the recording of our podcast?
You said Scott watches models, and that reminded me to check my Instagram.
Well, can't share that one.
It's funny though.
Not even the screenshot. Not even. None of those can be shared, and you're not supposed to do that in
When Scott
broadcasting.
starts talking science stuff, I drift away, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
It's like you're not supposed to. One of the number one rules in broadcasting is, don't allude to something on air that you can't really follow up on. I'm telling you right now, we can't really follow up on that.
Well, if you want to follow up, go follow Caleb's Instagram. It's not for family viewing, but if you're over 18 years old, you might be entertained.
You might be. All right, so let's talk about sounds. This was another interesting question that we got from a listener. I put a little bit of a spin on it, but he was asking about our favorite sounds, and in the course of the back and forth, he talked about, does sound, listening, you always talk about the signs and what you see and all that, and the question was, do sounds ever affect where you're going to cast, where you're going to stop, things like that? Caleb, you look like you're chomping at the bit on this, because my answer was absolutely yes. Some of the sounds are very unique to something's happening.
I mean, yeah. redfish blow-ups, obviously, right?
Caleb wasn't even listening to the question.
He was leaning forward.
I guarantee you.
Y'all
He
all have
was not.
tells. Y'all all have tells that I picked up on. When Caleb leans forward like this, he's ready to go.
Yep. No,
he was looking at his Instagram. He's got the camera
maybe
right there.
It's over. It's over here. I just forwarded that to Frank and John. Well, we talk about fishing at night, and man, trout smacking at night that's a pretty big thing of what we do. During the daytime, man, I'll hear redfish blow up back in the marsh, and it'll kind of give me an idea. I want to go over to that pond or this pond. The sounds of 100 screaming seagulls help, but I don't know.
That counts. That counts. That gets your head on a swivel.
Yeah, but no, primarily of a redfish. I mean, of a trout, and then just a bloosh of a redfish. Those are about probably the only two things that I really key in on that I think of. Oh, if you hear a boat of people cheering, you move that way. Cast that direction.
Yeah, Scott, you've talked about the flushing sound, and it's very, very distinct.
Yeah, a redfish. Yeah, you hear mullet all the time, and I get people all the time, man. What was that? That was redfish, and it was a big mullet up in the grass. And then a few minutes later, you'll hear that complete. I mean, it's a toilet flush. I mean, it's like one of them badass toilets at Buc-ee's that, whoosh, thing goes.
Yeah,
and it's a different sound. It's a deeper sound, and it really.
Like a truck stop bathroom, huh?
I like that. But I mean, it's a different sound, and once you hear it, you recognize it, and you realize what it is. Then you quit paying attention to the mullet as much. But one of my favorites was always when I stay down there at Mansfield. Camille and I used to go down and spend a week down there all the time before we had kids, and walking out onto the pier first thing in the morning, I'd always get up a couple of hours earlier than we were going to go fishing, get up a little bit earlier and just creep down that pier and walk real quiet and listen to those big trout slurping off the end of the pier. And it was always the bigger trout, down there that as you walked out there, you might get one cast in and then they were going to disappear. But the whole way out, those long, long piers out there, the whole way out, you're walking as quiet as you can. And you can hear them slurping off the end of it. Love that.
Yeah, Dean,
I was just watching Caleb's video while y'all were talking about slurping.
Well, that's appropriate.
And I completely lost my train of thought.
Or inappropriate. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, one of the others.
I mean, what gets better than trout and redfish blowing up? Or, when a pontoon boat goes by on the 4th of July with the load of bikini girls and the music playing, that's
a good sound. You don't want to go that way unless you get invited.
John just put a PVC pipe where they were at.
Yeah.
That took a long time to come back around, didn't it?
What are y'all's favorite sounds in fishing? Because that's how the question started.
One of the others is on the drain days up on the upper coast, middle upper coast. Those drain days when you can hear the school of redfish coming before they ever even get within sight. You can hear them coming down the shoreline, and it's just a constant popping. That's a cool noise. But one of Dean and I's favorites, I'm surprised Dean didn't think about this, the pop of a snook back in those trees in Florida. Sounds like somebody, it sounds like somebody took a old wooden paddle and slapped it on the water. It is a very distinct noise that kind of echoes in those big mangrove trees.
Go ahead, Dan.
No, that's a good one. I mean, I got nothing to add, man. These guys, I mean, I like the sound of a airboat off in the distance coming at me.
No, you don't.
I like whales breaching in the ocean. The siren sound of the mermaid call.
The one y'all didn't say, and it can be good or bad, usually bad, is the exhale of a dolphin. When I hear that, that exhale of the dolphin.
Don't like that one.
I got another one from Florida. The exhale of a manatee.
Oh yeah.
The weird manatee.
Blows snot 15 feet in the air.
Who was it that jumped out of their kayak because of it. When one came up behind him and did
I
that.
know it's Stubblefield
Shane?
got actually
Mhm.
snotted on though. I mean, he got sprayed with manatee mucus.
I was trying to remember if it was Shane. Somebody was sitting
I don't remember
sideways in their
who
kayak
jumped out.
and one came up and blew right behind them, spooked them bad enough that they jumped out of their kayak.
I don't remember.
That'll do it. That'll do it. So, like your favorite sounds is I want to just go ahead and answer his question real quick before we move on to the next topic. Outside of the line screaming, there's some that that are just sort of make the trip, make it memorable. I don't know about you. I don't want to necessarily influence you, but Caleb, what are you thinking?
All right, my favorite sound is, all right, Cap, we've caught a bunch of fish. I think we can go ahead and head on in. That's a hell of a good sound. Yeah, there's two that are kind of the popping of a school coming, and then the whoosh of a nearshore school that's just running through bait.
Mhm.
I also love that we've caught a bunch of fish. Let's head on in. That's a beautiful sound.
No, that's fine. Scott?
Dean, another one with Dean when you're kayaking and you're paddling along, and all of a sudden you hear fish on, come take my picture.
Take my picture.
Come take my picture.
Yeah.
Oh, it's every time.
Yeah.
I got
Content.
Scott's always back there behind the bushes. Oh, I got another one.
Mhm.
Oh, another one. Like,
My favorite is
I'm out of here.
that sucking sound that a trout makes, that it's not just a pop, it's not just a look, it's not just the whatever he hit it. When there's a certain sound that a trout makes on a topwater that is, he's got it. Like there's no question, no doubt. Yeah. He's got it.
Or
100%.
when they're big enough and you're bringing them in to land them and they're right there in front of you, they'll come up and with their mouth. And it has to be a pretty big one, but they'll make that slurp right there in front of you, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it really. I started thinking about it, like, oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just kind of soothes the old soul.
And John did not mention popping corpse.
Oh, that little bloop, bloop. It's the best. It's the absolute best.
How about a topwater on the topwater on a calm day?
Oh yeah. Yeah, see there, it's more than you think. I was thinking about the question, and I was like, yeah, there's a lot of sounds that just kind of soothe the old soul.
Two dudes yelling at each other at the boat ramp's cool.
Yeah, meeting at the boat ramp.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, let's dig into one here, because this I feel so bad, and I forget who asked the question. But we're in the middle of shrimp season, and he was asking about life cycles. If there's anything, I'm going to read the question, and I said this has been on here for damn near 2 months, and we've never gotten to it. So we're getting to it today. Promise. Quote, I would love for you guys to do a deep dive on the life cycle of certain species of fish, like trout, reds, flounder, etc. Where they hatch, the time of year, what they're eating, anything unique about the species. I'm having a hard time saying that word, species. When it is white or brown shrimp season, mullet, shad, glass minnows. I think this would help fishermen actually think about the hunt and patterns instead of just going to favorite spots, etc. Dean, I'm actually going to start with you on this. Usually I go the scientific questions first to Scott, but I know he's got a lot of stuff to cover. But the life cycles, not something we necessarily have talked about, but you can, like this time of year, you mentioned it a couple of episodes ago. You're going to find the trout where you expect them to be. How much of that is just time of year, or is there a life cycle factor here and a bait factor here?
Well, that's more time of year than a life cycle thing, because you'll have all sizes, all ages mixed into those areas. And that has to do with the migration of bait. There's shad and mullet and minnows and piggy perch. I mean, there's just all that life migrating at this point of the season. But I will do redfish, because I think that's probably the only one that I know that well. Redfish spawn, redfish are born, I guess you could say they're spawned offshore outside the jetties. The bull reds that are out there are the spawners. They are the ones that are spawning age. So they spawn, they gather at the jetties in the fall. They intermingle. They do what mommy reds and daddy reds do. And then the little baby, And what's it called? The little wiggle tails. They float into the bay. So then they go and they live in the flats, they live in the bays, they live inside the jetties for about 7 years until they become about 30 inches long. And if I remember that right, I think a 7-year-old redfish is spawning age. They get to about 30 inches. And another interesting fact about that is redfish, like big bull reds, they can live up to 50 years. They have a very long lifespan in the fishing world. I mean, even speckled trout, those 7 to 10-year-old fish, that's a full-grown fish about the end of its life. Even mahi offshore, they don't live but about 5 to 7 years. Sailfish, as big as they get, they have a very short lifespan. A redfish will actually get to be as old, and black drum 50 years old. So at about 7 years old, they migrate offshore and they become mature spawning age, and rarely do they even enter back into the bays at that point. They live their life offshore.
So I'm interested, Scott, in the shrimp aspect of this, because we always talk about baby shrimp, and they're big enough that you can that the redfish can eat them. But anything else that occurs to you compared to what Dean said, but also the shrimp aspect here.
With the redfish, I was looking up to double check myself because I was pretty sure I was right. 1-year-old is 11 inches, weighs about a pound. 2-year-old, 17 to 22, 3.5 pounds. 27 to 30 inches is about 3 to 4 years old, depending on whether it's male or female. And that's at around 28 to 30 inches when they're mature, sexually mature, and they start moving offshore. That's a little faster than I thought in the beginning when I first started messing around with, redfish. I always kind of thought they were a little older, 5, 6 years old before they got that 30-inch range. But that's from Texas Parks and Wildlife and their research and studies and stuff. But yeah, they do, like Dean said, and once they move out offshore, you get them coming in the bays some, but it'll generally be around the passes up inside the bays. Backside of our island here in Matagorda, you can find some big schools of bull redfish up in the bay. As far as shrimp, I mean, there's so many different kinds of shrimp. We think about white shrimp and brown shrimp, and we get too tied up into that. And those are pretty seasonal. But there's all kind of grass shrimp. I want to say there's like 9 or 10, 11 different species of shrimp in Texas. Some of them, most of them aren't commercial. They don't get very big. But, one way you can kind of follow it is when you go to the bait stand, just look in the bait tank. I mean, I don't buy shrimp unless I got a kid trip, but I'm always going over there to the bait tank, kind of taking a look. And there's times of years when all you see is, we call eyeballs and whiskers. They're pretty small, and if they're like that, then there's still a bunch of them still up in the marsh. Typically, they hatch out in the marsh, and as they grow, I've said it on here a bunch of times, I watch the edges of the marsh. I did the thing with Caleb on Angler U where I was hitting the push pole up against the side of the grass and watching them flip out, as they jump, and you can kind of judge how big they're getting. And it doesn't matter whether those are grass shrimp or brown shrimp or white shrimp or what they are. When they reach about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch, that's when the redfish are going to get interested in them.
Brown. You done, Scott? No.
Yeah, go ahead.
The brown shrimp can hatch twice a year. White shrimp 4 times a year. They peak in the spring and the fall. One of the best weeks of fishing I've had in the past 52 weeks was last week in Matagorda, and there was little shrimp everywhere. Schools of trout and birds on them. Right now, the south shoreline of both bays is absolutely loaded with small shrimp, and so it's loaded up with redfish right now. The freshwater and the saline and all that, it can affect it, I'm sure. But again, that's 4 times a year for white and twice for brown. And then, there's a lot of folks that think it only happens once or twice, but me and Scott were finding little bitty shrimp in July. I think it's July or something. It was hot when we were out there, so it was midsummer.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about. Go ahead, Caleb.
There's also times when you have, we'll have a big drought. There was one year that when I was fishing Galveston, it was probably 15 years ago or so, 2010, 11, we had this real severe drought, and there just weren't any shrimp in the marsh. I was doing my thing, poking at the edges and wasn't seeing any. And then we got some big rains late August. I think we had some tropical something came in, and all of a sudden, they just took off. And I talked to some biologists about it, Bill Harvey being one of them, and the salinity was just too high.
Mm-hmm.
And the shrimp eggs weren't hatching. The salinity got right and it exploded. That was one of the best falls I ever had in Galveston. It was insane how good it was. And it stayed good all the way up until around Christmas, because those shrimp were so far behind in their growth rate that they weren't getting very big and they were staying in the marsh. And the redfish just stayed after them all winter. That was a cool year.
Kind of what we're hearing here is, you got to see what the weather is doing, what the water is doing, what the salinity is doing, and then judge on basically when the hatch is. And you got to find out when the hatch is, right?
Yeah, honestly, that's how that poikilotherm thing started with me and Bill.
Yeah,
because Bill had done some studies on it. He was hired once he left Parks and Wildlife, he was hired by private firms, and he worked with some of the chemical companies, and there was a downgrade in the size and number of shrimp in Lavaca Bay. And so they did a whole bunch of studies on it, and the salinity level was a little higher during that period, and the water temperatures were slightly higher, which meant that the shrimp were using up more energy to regulate their body temperature and to displace the salt in their system. And they were using that energy to do that instead of putting on growth.
Yeah.
And it was pretty interesting to sit down and talk to him about it. I mean, I just condensed into a minute and a half what Bill told me in about 3 hours.
Yeah. Caleb, let's talk about the trout life cycle now, and some of the things that you can learn from that. And then I got a question for Dean that I frankly don't really know the answer to. Maybe he does. But the trout life cycle, we know they go in, how well you can help us. You tell us how fast they grow. We also know that once they get bigger, they're not necessarily schooling as much, but I like to say they're in the same neighborhood as you guys have heard. What about the trout life cycle? Anything we can kind of get from that?
You're breaking up.
I did break up. I'm sorry. I was talking about the trout cycle and anything you can learn from that.
Scott, can you hear him? Do you want to take that?
I see what's going on. All right, I'll give you that one.
They spawn on things. They go up. They grow out. They get big. They get about 30 inches. I put a hook in their face. I make some content. Next question.
All right. So Dean.
Well, everything I've actually learned that recently whenever the discussion on the speckled trout limits were taking place and the spawning age and at what length and age they were when they were the most prolific spawning, which I learned it, but I don't recall it.
Moving on.
That doesn't mean you learned it.
I want the whole presentation from James Sanchez, but
so we're going to get this from Scott in a second. But Dean, I do have a question for you as it pertains to trout, because one thing I've never figured out whenever I fish the flats, and of course I'm there a lot more now that I keep my place down there, is why the trout are just seem to be more abundant, in the flats this time of year, or certainly, compared to other times of year. Why are you can't find trout on the flats as much, and then all of a sudden it gets hotter weather and you do find them?
It's a good question.
What, Scott? Here's the way. Roll up your sleeves, Scott, because you're going to be leaned on heavily here.
Here's the way.
Not tell stories for an hour.
The way I analyze.
Let's talk about sounds again. Go ahead, Dean.
The way I would analyze that is what is available for them to eat. Why are they feeding here now? Why are they feeding more vigorously now? The time of year right now, we have just mega schools of shad. We have, the piggies, the minnows, the shrimp. It's just the time of life when life erupts on the flats. It erupts in the bays. It's the good season. It's the season when things are spawning and growing and just doing their best. So there's more opportunity for those guys to feed, put on some weight, I mean, during the wintertime when bait is scarce, whenever a lot of that activity is sparse, you catch speckled trout that are like pencil thin. You know, they're no belly to them at all. And now in the summertime, they tend to be, you know, really thick. It's not that often I catch one in the summer where they're just, you know, that pencil thin kind of speckled trout that you get in slimmer times of the year. So I would attribute it to, you know, the amount of bait fish and life is in the water.
Every once in a while in fishing, a reel comes along that changes the game. That reel is here, and if you're not using one, your friends are, and they're probably catching more fish. For sure, they're fishing with more confidence and comfort. Baits reels are the fishing industry's original CNC milled, one-piece aluminum, low-profile frame, built to last, it's built to fish. All Baits reels saltwater ready and good to go. You know I've got them on my boat. You should too. All reels, 3-year no BS warranty, and they mean that. And a 30-day money-back guarantee. If you're dissatisfied, you will not be. I say it all the time. It is true. No bull, just baits. Yeah, that was my theory. So, Scott, again, we're going to lean on you on the trout life cycle here and anything we can learn from this. My theory has always been the shrimp get bigger later in the spawn, so they're more abundant across the flat, not just on edges and such, because there's so much grass and everything. Just my theory, because this time of year and even further into the summer is when I've got some big trout on foot and a half of water.
They're going to depend on the size of the fish. They as they get older, they move more to bait fish, you know, versus shrimp. If shrimp are real plentiful, they're going to eat the shrimp, but they're not going to go seek out a single shrimp out of the grass. You know, they're not digging like redfish. They're going to, well, they just do. They just switch over to more of a bait fish diet. As they get bigger, and they'll eat bigger and bigger and bigger stuff, and they eat less often. Just big trout. You know, we all know they'll eat a huge mullet, a lot bigger than what we throw. A lot bigger than the lures we throw. 8 to 10 inch mullet is not oversized for them. Real big fish, but
if you subscribe to Angler U, you can go back about a week and read a fishing report about a 28-inch speckled trout that we caught in the afternoon last week in like 86-degree water. In 1 foot of water, big, fat, healthy trout slamming top water in hot, ultra skinny water in the afternoon. So there's patterns, and not to interrupt Scott, I mean, I just kind of wanted to add to that. There's patterns that are consistent seasonally, but there's a lot of rule breakers mixed in with that too.
Well, one of the things that has been interesting to me with all this forward-looking 360s scanning stuff that all the bass guys are doing, it has completely changed what people thought about bass and what they thought they did. I've talked to some of those bass pros that are really way off into that, and they're finding that big bass aren't necessarily stuck to structure like they always thought they were. They're out there cruising these big open flats. And the reason that everybody caught big fish up against structure was because that's where they were fishing for them. And I think that we're having the same thing with speckled trout and redfish. They are where we catch them. We catch enough of them that we feel like we got them figured out. But I think there's a whole lot of other things that those fish do that we don't have a clue about.
Yeah.
But as far as their life cycle, they're going to spawn. The young ones spawn a lot more often. Those I think they start spawning at like 11 to 12 inches. So that's in their between their first and second year, they'll reach that age in size class, and they'll spawn multiple times. You catch back when we could keep 12 to 14 inch trout, it seemed like every time you cleaned one, they had eggs in them. It didn't matter what time of year it was. Now, the bigger they get, the fewer times they spawn, but they spawn more. There's a bigger mass of eggs, bigger biomass. But basically, I just pulled a chart up just to look at it. But it's first year 9 inches on males, 8 inches on females. Second year it's 14 inches on males, 17 on female. Just they slow down in their growth. So by year 5, a male's 18, the female's 24. The males don't typically get much bigger than 20, 21 inches, even, you know, on up to 10 years old. But now a 10-year-old female that's when you get up into that 27, 28, 30-inch range.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones that, you know, everybody's looking for, the big trophies. So those are older fish. That's a big reason why we got to protect them so much.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, it took them a long time to get there, and there was a whole lot of fallout between the several million that were born and the handful that reached that 27, 28 inch, 30 inch range.
You see what happens when you ask questions like this?
What?
Hey, did you know the average baby elephant is between 200 and 300 pounds at birth?
I probably would have guessed something like that. I thought you had something really profound. You were just looking, you had your pen up, you were ready to go.
I was watching my dog dig a hole in my new $300 Gore-Tex jacket on the floor, and I could do nothing about it at the moment because I'm being professional right now.
There goes that jacket.
You could throw your pencil at it.
Yeah. What does the finger point mean? The finger point means you're next because you want to say something. And I did it to Caleb like that, and he was telling me about his jacket. But one more thing before we get to what would Scott do, what would Caleb do, and Dean, because Caleb, any thoughts on when they start to sort of not school as much, because you're still catching big trout, you know, in the same vicinity, but not necessarily in schools?
I think they stay grouped up. You know, to me, what I would consider a school would be more of like a you know, that they're grouped up and feeding type of situation, which when, like Scott and Dean were talking about on the flats, when the abundance of small bait goes away, that tends to quit happening.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think it kind of varies a little bit too. I think it's a food driven thing. If you go run around East Matagorda Bay and you run in front of, you know, the right drain or the right whatever, it's pretty common to see 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 big trout hanging out there.
Mm-hmm.
But in the same sense, if you know, like I ran my boat across a lot of like grass in the meadows and Baffin area the other day, and we'd see a single big trout, you know, every couple 200 or 300 yards. They weren't really grouped up. So I think that's what
I'm talking about.
Yeah, I think it relies a lot on, you know, what are they having to do to survive. In Matagorda, they're hanging out in front of those drains because there's bringing them food. Where down on the grass flats, they can just kind of cruise and go hunting, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know that there's a definite answer to any of that, or maybe that is the definite answer.
And I started calling it a neighborhood, probably pushing 20 years now, 15 years at least, when I had an epic day, you know, wade fishing, and I waded about 300 yards, maybe more, and kept catching some massive trout, but never in the same spot. I would catch it, cast, nothing, move 10, 15 yards, catch another one. So they were in the same neighborhood. They just weren't, and they were feeding, but they just weren't like in a proverbial school, you know?
I'd be willing to bet you were walking down a feature of some sort, whether it was a
I
gut
was.
or a,
Yeah, no,
or
I
a
can tell
long
you I
grass
was.
flat or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
You know, I've had incredible days where we sat there for 6 or 7 hours and caught a bunch of trout over 28, but they weren't all coming out of the same spot and they weren't all coming out at the same time, but they were coming out of the same feature.
Yeah.
You know, they're
And
using that drain to move up and eat.
Mm-hmm. But yet they're not schooled. They're just kind of on that edge. But it was interesting. Scott, you got anything before we move on?
Tarpon.
Oh yeah. What about it? Let's go.
Well, they don't know exactly where tarpon spawn, other than probably offshore, and kind of like redfish. And then the eggs get swept up into the bay where they hatch out,
Mm-hmm.
and they grow up in the little marshes and things. And people catch them in ditches, you know, throwing cast nets, little bitty guys. But the interesting thing for me that I learned from Bonefish and Tarpon Trust a few years ago, reading up on it, was that the young ones don't spawn, they don't migrate. and they don't migrate until they're sexually mature, and that's generally about 8 to 10 years old, and almost 4 feet. Between 4 and 4.5 feet is what they're at that age. So all these little baby tarpon that, that's what got me reading into it, is all the little tarpon that I catch along the jetties and I hear about up in the bays, and we see them in the bayous and stuff. Those are resident tarpon. They actually live here year round. So it's always gotten me kind of curious about where they are in the wintertime. Well, then we have a big freeze like we did 21, and Dean sees them roll up there in the by his boat.
Hey! Hold
You
your
said
tongue
it
there.
here. You said it right here. It ain't like we got different people listening. Same
Hold
boat.
your tongue there, sonny
But-
boy.
But I mean, all the sand pits around Galveston, places like that. A lot of people are going to get mad at me on that one. But every year that we have a freeze, there's dead ones floating up in some weird places, some oddball places. And I hear about a lot of them, because everybody knows I like tarpon so much. So I get a lot of emails and text and pictures and stuff on the side. But that's always been interesting to me, that all those little baby tarpon that we chase up and down in the jetties. And I'm talking around here, last summer, I was on hundreds and hundreds of them. They're all up and down, and they got to go back up in the bay somewhere, and they go hide out in the wintertime. And that's kind of one of my goals, is to go figure out where the hell they're all hiding in the wintertime around here. Because we didn't get a bunch of them float up around here anywhere. Nobody talked about it. Nobody saw it. If they did see it, they didn't say anything. But I suspect that they go up into some deep water and maybe in some rivers or ship channels. I don't know. But it'd be interesting to try to figure it out. But then they join up with the migration, and that's our big kick for the year is, they migrate up here and they get here late May usually, and they stick around. Last year, November 2nd was the last time I saw a school.
Yeah.
And then they head back to Mexico.
So, Dean, where is it that we got those tarpon down there?
It's in the port of Corpus Christi.
You are lying.
Back there by the lift bridge.
you are lying your ass off.
It's lower. No, there's little ditches and canals, just like what Scott was saying a minute ago. And a very interesting concept of where and why and when they do that. And yes, we've caught them in January in little dead end canals. And these are, tarpon that are 8, 10, maybe 12 inches long that are living in there through the coldest part of winter. And I mentioned that Port of Corpus Christi thing because I have a buddy of mine. He used to work on, he was a tugboat captain. And so his boat was parked back there in the port at night. And it's, strictly off limits to recreational fishermen. But while his tugboat was parked, he would fish around those lights back in the port. Caught tons of tarpon off of the tugboat. And those places, I mean, they do exist. And the way the tarpon numbers diminished over the years, there was probably a lot of that went away, that kind of left the conversation just because they weren't there. Now that tarpon are rebounding pretty well, there's more than there ever was, or more than in recent times, that, those are becoming more aware now, where people are catching them in cast nets in those ditches and places that they're throwing for bait. And there may be, more occasional, what we think of as a rare place or an unusual place to catch a tarpon may become more not so rare as they multiply and they begin to inhabit those areas again.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, I told you a couple of years ago, I was in the bay there, and I said, I think I caught a tarpon. I had it jumped and all that stuff, and then it left, and you were like, really?
That's good. As a skipjack.
No, it was not. No, it was. That's what you said. That's what you said then, and I think you were wrong then, and you're wrong now.
Yeah, one of the guys on here is saying that they're born in Texas and moved to Louisiana, but I think he's joking. But their Bonefish and Tarpon Trust has done a lot of studies on them, a lot of tagging, and there's two separate species, two separate subgroups of tarpon in the Gulf. There's the ones in Florida that go to South Florida, and there's ones that go to Mexico. and they migrate up from both directions. And it's generally accepted that they meet somewhere around the mouth of the Mississippi. Is about as far as that's about as far as they go. The Florida fish go as far as like Grand Isle, and the Mexico fish go as far as the mouth of the river. So they kind of overlap a little bit, and then they turn around and return right back. They haven't had a single tagged fish yet that was a Mexico fish that ended up in South Florida, or a Florida fish that ended up in Mexico.
You know why? You know why they don't cross over?
Why is that?
Because the ones that go to Mexico speak Spanish. The ones from Florida.
I figured that's where you were headed.
That makes a lot of sense.
And
You ever
then
been
they
to South Florida?
They can't communicate.
Yeah,
Tap the brakes on that.
That's a Cuban dialect. It's totally different.
Yeah, it's a different accent.
It's totally.
All right.
totally
So even though Dean doesn't believe I caught a tarpon when I did, we're going to go on to.
We're gonna. I was hoping we'll get into flounder next week. We'll do flounder next week.
You know what? I'm going to write that down. We'll get into flounder.
We'll give Caleb time to do some research,
studying,
and they have a very interesting season with or whatever spawning, the way they do spawning. But let's get into what would Scott, Dean, and Caleb do. Dean, I'm going to start with you. High tides, a lot of water. Still some wind. Anything change?
No, it's about the same. Just watching the weather now. I mean, we had a good conversation at the beginning of this about stormy weather popping up on you. So we'll see how the rest of the week goes with controversial reports or conflicting reports of what's going to happen. But I mean, I'm going to be out there the next bunch of days. And the wind is not, I mean, it's great drifting wind, drifting tide.
It's shootout wind.
The conditions look absolutely, well, it's, you can put 1 or 2 out opposed to 3 or 4. To slow the boat down. But I mean, it looks like great conditions. The rain, as bad as it can be temporarily, you know, a nice little freshwater influx into the bay tends to turn things on pretty good.
Yeah. Well, good. So, I'm gonna let Scott and Caleb add anything if they have anything to add. But I do want to add, there's a rumor going around that Scott's going to be on Angler U tonight. Caleb,
it is. I'm gonna let him do all that sciencey stuff, talking about freshwater and stuff.
Yeah. So we got that. Scott, any updates before you offer anything on what would you do this weekend?
Man, I just watch the weather and play it as it goes, because there is something that's out there in the Pacific. I was just looking at it, and a couple of the weather guys that I watch, Mike's weather page is one of the best, and he's kind of back and forth about it. He's kind of like where I was in the beginning of this. I believe it when I see it.
Yeah. All right. So we got that. Don't forget to go on the pin posts to get everything taken care of for the Feeding Frenzy and this beautiful shirt that I'm wearing that you can now get right there. The link is there as well. We got a lot more to cover next week. These guys, again, have put together a really good show for you guys. Any parting thoughts at all? Anybody? No? Yes? No? All right. We appreciate you guys joining us. Don't forget to do all that stuff and to subscribe and join the group page. Good things happen. And we're going to have a lot next week for sure. I'm going to give you an update on some of the items that have already been donated. And it's a hell of a list. You don't want to miss the Feeding Frenzy in September. You guys have a great week. Have a great weekend. Hope you had a great Father's Day. Catch them up. We will talk to you next time.
John, you believe in reincarnation?
Yeah.
I'm thinking my wife might have been a redfish.
Why is that?
Gets in the mood once a year. Seems about right.
Hey, you're lucky. That's once a year.
Yeah. But rather it be a shrimp. That's 4.